My mic was muted. Let me fix that. Hello, and welcome to yet another Midweek with Meaning. I have a couple questions for you. So please say hello if you'd like, but here's a couple questions, and you can raise your hands if this is true for you. Do you struggle with, or do you work with people that struggle with anxiety? Have you ever been told or felt that you are hypervigilant? Have you ever been told that? Do you know what that means, even? And would you like some tips and ideas around how to balance this experience to make it less intolerable? Those are the questions I have for you as we begin. So, anyway, hello, my name is Angela Ward. For those of you that haven't watched before, I am a registered nurse, a soul midwife, and the CEO of Guardian at the Gateway, where we support people journeying within and returning renewed into their wholeness and well being. If this is your first time watching, please leave a comment for me. If you're watching on Facebook, please give live StreamYard permission to let me see where you're coming in from. I love comments through this whole process. So being engaged is super helpful. Post on your way through. And if you're watching the replay, please put replay in the comments so I know that you had a chance to check this out. So let us begin. Do you have a way to take notes? I hope you do. So this is such an interesting topic. And I was inspired to talk about this because this has been an ongoing theme of the clients that I work with. There's many of my clients that experience this, not only anxiety, but a sense of vigilance where there's constantly scanning their environment and trying to be aware of what's going on. So what are some of the roots here? I'm sure you have some ideas, but the roots of anxiety and vigilance really come from not feeling safe. That may be related to a trauma of some kind as an adult or as an older person. But for those of you that have experienced significant childhood trauma to some degree or grew up in an unsafe environment, you were vigilance becomes your superpower. Does that make sense? Like being aware of what's happening with people and environments around you becomes a really strong superpower. So, in a way, vigilance is really a wonderful tool, a wonderful resource that you've developed really well. But what makes it problematic? So, we have to consider what's the difference between vigilance and hypervigilance. I've heard Dr. David Grand, the creator of brain spotting, says that vigilance is natural and hypervigilance is really destructive. The challenge with hypervigilance is what happens is we're looking at the world through past patterning and assigning meaning that's really difficult to live through. So it's a natural part of the way that our brains work, especially as we age, to recognize patterns within the environment and to make assumptions about that pattern. So we're very quick at like, this is occurring, so this means this, that this must mean this. And yet for people that are struggling with anxiety and hypervigilance, they kind of miss the response. In fact, it's such a wired in pattern that they're immediately believing that what they're perceiving, they're scanning for something really bad to be going on. And the second there's something that sniffs of an old pattern, it throws that person. I love how my phone dings in response to me saying things. It's like the universe is giving you a little extra ding ding. It's in response. We're looking through this old lens, which therefore means you're not safe. So there's something we're scanning for. It already puts us in that kind of scared place that something bad is happening. And when something bad appears to be happening, it immediately shuts us down into that fight or flight place. We lose that ability to think with our full brain, right? So I want to talk about how to differentiate this because vigilance is an important part of our life. It's when it's in hypervigilance that leads to anxiety that it can be really disruptive. So, if there's anyone watching right now that has that experience with hypervigilance relating and connecting to anxiety, please give me a thumbs up or a heart. You don't have to out yourself, but I absolutely would love to see if this is vibing with you. Um, whenever I'm exploring these concepts, it's really helpful for me to understand the root of what these words mean. And I was very curious about vigilance because so many of us associate vigilance with hypervigilance and therefore a bad thing. And it was really interesting to review the root of this word. So um, its root seems pretty neutral and quite lovely in a way. Hypervigilance, of course, hyper means over, above, exceedingly, excess. But vigilance means in its root word wakefulness, watchfulness, and attention, which I think is really lovely. And it comes from an even older root word that means to be strong and lively. I feel like vigilance is kind of related to vitality, right? So there's a piece about that that really is a part of our human nature that is really essential. But moving into this hypervigilant and anxiety place is just a really brutal way to have to function in the world, right? Can I get an amen there? So, one of the things that I've been discovering through my work with my clients and others is how we look at that superpower of scanning our environment. So we're going to use this example of the hare and the hawk, okay? And I'd like you to try this on in an embodied way. And by the way, this is a tip that you're learning to help you reframe your experience of being vigilant. I often think that vigilance and anxiety they're definitely intertwined. But I think if we can create space between the vigilance and the anxiety, if we can create vigilance as having less triggered meaning, we can make anxiety decrease. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about with the hare and the hawk. Imagine you're a cute little bunny rabbit. You're a hare. I'm sure if you live in the Pacific Northwest like me, you've seen tons of bunnies just out in the world. And just picture in your mind what they look like. You know, if you saw their face, their little whiskers are twitching all the time. Their eyes seem to be looking at stuff all the time, and they're doing their thing, but they are vigilant because they are a prey animal. And so their awareness, and I'm not a bunny, so I don't actually know that this is true. They're probably pretty relaxed most of the time. But I can imagine if I was a bunny, keeping my eyes open for dogs and hawks and cats and humans stepping on me and what are all the things that go after bunnies, right? That my energy would be in that more anxious place, right? Does that make sense? So try on feeling like a bunny that's like watching out, like, oh shit, it could come from the sky. It could come from over there. Oh my gosh, I've been chased before. I saw my friend picked up by a hawk. Holy shit, the world's not safe. I gotta eat and bang and get out of here. So that's one idea. I feel more related to the hypervigilant perspective. But now let's transition to the idea of the hawk. And I got this from my beloved husband, Jed, who had an experience with this hawk energy and his own experience of vigilance, where an animal like a predator is my impression of being around some predators is not that they are constantly like snarling and vicious. They're actually extremely relaxed in their environment, and yet they have this broad awareness. They're scanning their environment for opportunity with a sense of curiosity, likely. So the hawk, we've had a Cooper's hawk that's hung out in our backyard and scares the crap out of the chickens. But it has this self-containment. It's definitely scanning the environment. It's looking around, but it isn't ready to dart off at a moment's notice the same way that the hare is. So I'd like you to try on that energy of hawk, or maybe you could consider like a lion, those pride of lions that just kind of lounge, with their feet out, and other animals walk by all like, oh shit, but the lions don't care. They're just like, I'm not hungry right now, so you're fine. But they know, right? They're still very aware. So can you kind of feel that difference? I hope that's like resonating for some of you. So understand that your vigilance is a superpower and a beautiful skill set that you've developed through these experiences of not feeling safe, and maybe these experiences of trauma that you've had. So they've served you really well. Now, how do we disconnect that anxious response from the vigilance? So first, this idea of imagining shifting yourself from prey animal to predator, if that doesn't feel too violent. It's not meant to be a violent, it's just to try on that energy and kind of ground into that experience of just a creature that's aware and is safe, is really safe in their environment because they can protect themselves. The next piece, I think, is if we can kind of detach that, is really noticing what hypervigilance feels like in your body. What happens to you when you're starting to feel hypervigilant? Do you feel the anxiety first? Do you feel the vigilance happening first? So let's say you're someone who is really uncomfortable in groups or around people, right? Let's say you are going to the store and you really don't like being around people. Is it the thought of the anticipated experience that triggers your anxiety? Or is it going into that environment and feeling like you need to be really clear about who is where and what they're doing? Are you running kind of this like the scanner? If you are starting to run a pattern, we need to understand that that pattern may not be informing you with full truth. For those of us that have a history of childhood trauma, especially, this is a really hard place to unpack and probably requires the support of a professional, if not multiple professionals, to help you heal this, because we have to learn how to trust our instincts. But when you've been raised in a traumatic environment, what you've been patterned to believe is instinctual may not actually be true about the reality that's happening right now. And that's not to negate your experience in any way. It's just that there's a lot of things tangled. We need to learn how to become grounded and safe in the present moment. That's another conversation for later. So how might we recognize that we're running a pattern of vigilance that's not supportive? For me, when I start feeling hypervigilant, I'm very outward focused. I've kind of lost touch with my body, especially my breath. That's the first, not the first thing, but I think that's the most overt feeling that I have, is that I'm not breathing. And I wonder if this resonates for any of you. Please comment if this is an embodied experience you have and what your experience is like when you're feeling that. So if I'm busy outwardly scanning, I even sometimes will get kind of tunnel vision. So those of you that have had anxiety, panic attacks, let's say, maybe you've had that experience of kind of tunnel vision, or even maybe blacking out a little bit, definitely from holding breath and then running all that cortisol, fight or flight experience. If you notice that this is the pattern, like these are the red flags we need to tune into. Is your heart beating faster? Are you starting to clench your belly? Are you not breathing? Maybe you have another thing that happens for you. Your left pinky goes, that's my thumb. My thumb goes numb. or something. I don't know if that happens for people. If we can start tuning into what's happening in the body, we can then bring breath back into the body and use techniques to presence and ground us. So for those of you that have worked with EMDR, that's a lovely, lovely practice. Tapping, alternate nostril breathing, I love, because you can do it really quickly. And if you're going out in the world and you're wearing a mask, it can just be like super subtle. But things to kind of get blood flow back in your body, practicing relaxing different parts of your body so you can step with confidence. Call in that image of your power animal, of your hawk or your lion or whatever creature wants to come into this space with you. And I know that might sound a little woo, but I think it's really helpful to remember that. One of my clients last week was talking about their experience of being hypervigilant and how it was a problem, but then was able to look at this person is a fly fisherman and was talking about that vigilance was super important in order to be effective at that experience of fly fishing, that they needed to be able to be aware where the shadows were, where certain insects were, where the water might be flowing in different ways to kind of keep that open, expanded awareness. I think this might be another real piece too, and I'd be curious about what your thoughts are. Thank you, Facebook user that said that there's a feeling of clenching belly, feeling small. Yes. Brain fog and a feeling of emptiness. Yes. That's pulling your energy back in that feeling of like the hair, right? Hello, Ellie. Yes, definitely pulling back that energy. A predator, a prey animal doesn't want to be seen by the predator, right? So anything you can do to take up less space should be a really big clue that you're running in this anxiety, hypervigilant place. So speaking back to this person that was having an understanding of vigilance needed to fly fish and needing to see that entire environment all around, I wonder if there is more of a feeling in vigilance that's just about taking up space, claiming your space with breath, with your full body, and with your open awareness, as opposed to a tunnel vision. And like hypervigilance to me feels like I'm looking at one thing, like I'm really trying to just like scan like this. Whereas that energy of the hawk, think about hawks got these big eyes that can see all around, or an owl, right? They can turn their head completely around. They're seeing 360. They're not contracted down into a little energetic space. So how might you bring your ability to take up space? And I just want you to really understand that if you're struggling with trauma, and this is a pattern that's really old for you, you may not believe that you have permission to take up space, or that it's safe for you to take up space. And I just want you to know that yes, it is your birthright to take up the space that you are in, 100%. I am so sorry for any trauma that you have experienced that told you otherwise, because it's bullshit. You know, you're here, take this space. So let's practice tapping into that power animal and some creature that really has the right to be walking the earth and being fully present and safe and grounded. So is there more I want to say about that? I don't know that there's much more I want to say at this moment. If there's questions, please pop them in the chat. But I really wanted to pull a spirit animal card for you guys today. I haven't done it for a while, but I was like, well, what animal might show up? And I promise you, I am not, it's down to 3 sweet cards on the top, but those are not them. I don't pre-pick the cards. The cards come to say what they must say. So, what animal spirit card would like to possibly inform us, give us a little more insight around how to safely take up space, to claim our rights, to use our superpower of vigilance and awareness and to release that sense of anxiety and smallness and prey animal. How can we claim this energy? So this week, I'd really encourage you to notice when your body is moving into hypervigilance, what's happening here? What's happening and what's the story that starts going? Because with awareness, we can change these things, right? Okay, so here's the card we're getting. Oh, it's little koala spirit. I don't think I've had koala spirit ever, and I've had this deck for quite a while. Okay, let me read koala spirit to you. Is koala even a prey animal? Is it it's not a predator, right? Aren't they vegetarians? Does anybody go after koalas? Okay, hang on just a second. I'm going to read this one to you. So it says, Spirit has a plan. Ooh, I like that. Okay. Bringing you your koala spirit to look at. Where can I put it? Okay. Spirit has a plan. In nature, the koala moves slowly through the branches of the eucalyptus tree, leisurely chewing on leaves, reminding us that life is not a race or a competition. Yes. So I think to speak to that in relationship to vigilance and anxiety, slow down. If you feel yourself getting anxious, bring breath in, slow down. There is no need to rush. Anxiety pops us into that fight or flight place anyway. So let's try to get out of that fight, flight, rushing, panicky place. Okay, so thank you so far, Koala Spirit, for that one. Okay. Chasing around after every distraction can keep us from recognizing that we all have all we need, and that Spirit will always be there with gifts to sustain us. You are being asked to trust that moving slowly with faith in the abundance that, in faith that the abundance is everywhere, surrendering to a power greater than yourself, you will be able to experience the manifestation of your desires. As you take your time enjoying the riches available to you right now, sitting peacefully, you begin to radiate joy and abundance. Spirit is here to help you discover happiness, pleasure, and contentment, all the gifts that are yours now and in the future. Have faith and trust in Spirit's plan for you and know that you are loved and cherished. So that to me speaks to, yes, taking up space, taking up your space. Let yourself find some pleasure and joy instead of constantly being in a place of anxious vigilance. Those feelings are not a life sentence, okay? I promise you that. It may feel like it. You may feel like you're broken and you're never going to not be anxious or depressed or have PTSD symptoms. I promise you, as someone who has personally recovered from PTSD and who has walked with people as they journey through their healing with PTSD or complex PTSD or learning how to feel safe and dealing with anxiety, you can actually feel better. It may not be 100% better and it may not be 100% of the time, but there are ways that we can find some pleasure and joy here and embrace our right to be. Okay, let's see what else it says. We'll tell us does it say. Okay, more koala spirit. Oh. Okay. Are you feeling uneasy? Ooh, wait. This one's perfect. Are you feeling uneasy and mistrustful of the world? Have you been hiding in a safe spot, afraid to venture out because you're convinced that life and other people will disappoint you? Koala Spirit has appeared to let you know that your faith is misplaced. The present safety you seek is already passing away because all things are temporary and outer conditions are always changing. Find your safety by placing your faith and trust in Spirit, who will grow the abundance that is already yours. Perhaps you are acting slowly and overly cautious because you lack faith that there is more for you out there than what you know. You may have boxed yourself into a safe place that has nothing else to give you and become so familiar with it that you have forgotten to explore. Ooh, yes. You may have boxed yourself into a safe place that has nothing else to give you and and you have forgotten to explore. How can anxiety and vigilance trap us in that box that we've lost any opportunity for curiosity and play? Are you feeling pessimistic and convinced there is nothing more for you out there? Koala Spirit reminds you that self-care is meant to replenish you so that you can venture out again in faith, trusting that there is no limit to the joy that you can experience. Be good to yourself and reconnect with your spirit to reclaim your faith in things yet unseen. Well, that's a sweet little card to top up this conversation around vigilance and anxiety. Yes, please take some time to explore this week and see if you can untangle the pattern and find the embodied feeling of what's happening for you. So, that's what I got to share this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a couple announcements. So, one thing is, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe and comment or whatever. I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel to 100 followers so I can have a custom mural. So, that would be super cool if you'd subscribe. Um, and oh, thank you, Facebook user. I'm not sure who this is because you got to give StreamYard permission to show. I'm so glad that card was perfect for you. Yeah, it's crazy how, when we look through certain lenses, they can really resonate. The next thing is, please mark your calendars, friends. Keep your eye on my stuff because August 23rd, we're going to be doing, back by popular demand, we're going to do another resilient wellness workshop. So we're going to have 5 days, short, impactful little teachings to help you fine tune your relationship to your own well-being. And it's just a taster of some of the work we do in my larger group program. I'd love to invite you in there too if there's some interest there. But that is free and there's prizes and it's always really fun and impactful for people. And I would love to have you there. So if you'd like to know more, just message me. I'll be putting more stuff out and a way to register in the next couple days probably. But anyway, I'm so thankful for you joining me. Please remember that I make these for you. This is for you. So if there's a topic that you're interested in hearing about, that you've been exploring, or maybe something you're struggling with, let me know. I'm happy to dig into it and, share my perspective and insight or whatever I have to offer in service of your healing. All right, my loves, have a beautiful week, and I'll see you back here next Wednesday. Bye. Mwah.